Hello and welcome back. My name is Heather and I am your host here at Felony Spectator. On today's episode, we're going to discuss the so-called suicide of Kayla Skeen. A while back, I did an episode on Natasha Boykin. I will link it here if you haven't heard of it before, and her case is very similar. When I was doing research for Natasha Boykin, I learned about Kayla Skeen. And both of these cases were ruled suicides, even though the evidence tells a little bit of a different story. Let's get into it. Kayla Skeen was just 18 years old and lived in Middleburg, Florida. Facebook shows that she worked as a cashier at Harbor Freight and formerly McDonald's. She was said to be really smart and actually planned to pursue a career as a nuclear engineer. Her mother would say that she just loved life. She had a huge heart, and Kayla was the kind of person who would do just about anything for anyone. She wanted people to be happy, and helping others was always something she did without a second thought. Her grandmother would say that she was just the sweetest thing ever. She had a really close relationship with her grandparents and would visit them often. On Valentine's Day, when Kayla was just 17 years old, she would meet Allan Marsh, who was 23 years old. The 6-year age gap didn't seem to worry her at all. In fact, she would fall head over heels in love with Allan. Unfortunately for Kayla, Allan would often be out of work. And it's said that Kayla's nurturing heart would want to take care of Allan because he didn't have a steady income from his lack of employment. So it meant that he couldn't pay his own rent, get groceries, or have any money for basic necessities. It's possible Kayla felt sorry for him, but she also loved him and she was always there for him, always taking care of him. For Kayla's family, this would be alarming. It seemed like Kayla was being taken advantage of, and they didn't like that. She was basically supporting Allan, this man 6 years older who was perfectly capable of working. And they tried to talk to her about it, but she really wanted the relationship to work. She was an optimist and thought if she helped him out, it would get him back on his feet and things would get better. Sadly, they also noticed that Allan was very needy and controlling. It didn't take long before he didn't want Kayla to hang out with her friends and would be jealous if she tried to make plans or talk to them. He preferred it if she either was with him or at work. And all of her work paychecks were going towards supporting Allan and keeping him happy. Keeping him happy wasn't easy. Not only was he keeping tabs on Kayla and making sure he knew where she was at all times, he also became physically abusive towards Kayla. On one particular night in August of 2012, things got really bad. Allan had taken an aluminum crutch and started swinging and hitting it towards Kayla's truck. Then he went inside and got a baseball bat to do even more damage, breaking all the taillights, the headlights, the windows were all broken. All the while, Kayla was inside the truck cowering and trying to phone the police for help. When police did arrive, he actually tried to tell officers that Kayla did all the damage to her truck herself and he would blame her for everything. And the story should have stopped there because Allan was arrested and charged with criminal mischief. But unfortunately, she took Allan back. And I can only imagine that he begged her, said sorry, that he'd change. And I don't blame Kayla for doing that. So many women take their abusers back, and it's just part of the cycle. Kayla's mom thought it was hard for Kayla to let go of the relationship because they were together for over 2 years. And Kayla was a very forgiving and loyal person. A judge had ordered no contact with Kayla, according to the court records, and he was also told to take an anger management class within 15 days and complete the course within 15 months. But that didn't happen. Kayla's family actually suspect that she paid to bail him out of jail. Her family did try and step in again. They tried to talk to her out of dating or even speaking with Allan again, but she insisted that she had things under control and could handle it. I don't think Kayla realized how much control Allan really had over her. He was very manipulative and would threaten suicide or that he'd hurt himself if Kayla tried to leave. He would also threaten her if she didn't come to his beck and call. Not long after he was bailed out of jail, Allan asked if he could move in with Kayla and her mom. Kayla's mom really didn't want that to happen, but she was scared of losing her daughter if she had said no. So she reluctantly agreed. And I mean, Allan couldn't even hold down a job, so how was he going to contribute to living there? It was a tough situation for them. Kayla's mom and Allan would eventually have a falling out and he moved out of the house. Kayla's mom would say that he would text her pretending to be Kayla and tell her that she was a witch, telling her that he hates her, telling her to have a shower and wash the evil off of her. He was just a really mean person and took his anger out on everyone around him. Kayla would continue to support him emotionally and financially. She would also be used as his punching bag. A friend and witness would make a statement saying that he watched Allan beating her up, quote, like a man, and dragging her over the gravel driveway. He would be punching her while she was on the ground, bruising her and causing other injuries. This friend tried to jump in, but Kayla actually stood between them and asked her friend not to hurt Allan. So even when Allan was beating her, she was still defending him. Kayla's grandma actually heard the commotion and heard that Kayla asked Allan why. And he simply told her it was because she was stupid. At this point, Kayla was heartbroken. She knew this wasn't a healthy relationship, and she would leave to go on a quick trip with her family to Tennessee. The break was welcoming, and her family hoped that Kayla would come back and break up with him. Just days later, on September 1st, 2013, Kayla returned from the trip with her family. And Kayla had a good time and was seemingly happy. She actually wrote on her Facebook, quote, "Tennessee is so beautiful. Definitely a change from boring old Middleburg. I love it and want to stay forever. Missing the boyfriend, but enjoying the scenery. I belong in the mountains. Off to Gem Mountain tomorrow, back home Sunday," end quote. When she did get home, she would pick Allan up to go and get groceries and then head to her grandmother's house where she was staying. At 7:30 p.m., her grandma would come home and see Kayla and Allan sitting in Kayla's truck. Kayla would go into the house and ask if Allan could move into the mobile home on her property. Grandma and Grandpa both said no, but Allan wouldn't take no for an answer. He would start to threaten to break up with Kayla if he wasn't allowed to move in. The argument would continue to go into the evening until Kayla's grandmother finally agreed that Allan could stay for one night overnight, but Allan would have to be gone in the morning. Kayla would tell her grandmother that she was going to go be with Allan in the trailer and would return at midnight, which was her curfew. Around 11 p.m., Kayla's grandmother would go into the kitchen and notice that all the lights were off at the trailer, which to her seemed a bit odd. Then 30 minutes later, the porch lights would be turned back on. Knowing Kayla's curfew was coming up, she'd look out the back porch and see Allan just standing there. She would open the door and ask Allan what he wanted. He asked her if Kayla was there, and her grandmother told him no. He then went back to the trailer, calling out for Kayla over and over. Allan then came running back, asking for someone to call the cops because he found Kayla hanging from a tree by an electrical cord. He would then run back to the tree and cut her down. When police arrived, Allan told them he found her there in the tree, and the police almost immediately ruled her death a suicide, believing what Allan told them. Kayla's grandparents were never asked for their account of the night. Kayla's mom and family do not believe this for 1 second. Kayla loved life. She loved her family, and she would never kill herself. Her only turmoil was her boyfriend, Allan. Police, however, didn't seem to think there was any reason to believe it wasn't anything but suicide. They didn't investigate the scene, and they didn't even speak to her family to get information on Allan. It was basically a closed case from the get-go. So her family hired a private investigator named Clu Wright, who said that there was stuff everywhere that pointed towards murder and a proper investigation should have been done. He believes the homicide happened inside the mobile home, and then she was brought outside where Allan staged the suicide. The first oddity was that police never formally questioned Allan. Now, if they had actually questioned Allan properly, they would have gotten a timeline and also found out that Kayla and Allan were fighting before she was found. Had they also investigated the crime scene, they would have found other things that didn't make sense, such as the electrical cord. Allan claimed that he found Kayla 2 to 3 feet off the ground. But the length of the cord where Allan allegedly cut it was only 4 foot 10 inches off the ground. So Kayla would have been standing if that was the case. There was no way Kayla could suspend herself with how long the cord was. The knots were also extremely loose. If there was any weight to the cord, the knots would have been for sure tight against the tree. The cord was never tested for DNA and has since been thrown away by Florida police. Her shirt was also ripped, and her necklace was broken and later found in pieces, part of it on the living room of the trailer, and the pendant was stuffed in the living room chair cushions. There were injuries to her lips and face, and it appears she was beat right before she was found as well. Kayla was also cold to the touch by the time emergency personnel arrived. Now, Allan was known to have a violent temper and had a criminal record, but police didn't look into that either. The private detective would also learn that there was a phone call made by Kayla to a friend at 10:45 p.m. saying that Allan was chasing her around the property in anger and she wanted him to get away from her. Her friend also says that you could specifically hear Allan in the background yelling, "Your grandparents are not your friends." The biggest piece of evidence that points towards homicide was the injury on her neck from the electrical cord was horizontal, which isn't consistent with a hanging. Typically, you would see injuries going upwards towards the ear, but hers were going towards her back. Of course, Allan claims that Kayla and him were not fighting, and she had actually come back from her grandparents' house crying. He further stated that she wanted to kill herself with a knife. He would say that it took 30 to 45 minutes to calm her down and take the knife away from Kayla. And during that time, they did have a bit of a scuffle. He thought she was fine after that, and he did not know she was going to later go outside and end her life. He has also mentioned to friends that he believes someone else was there that night and agrees that maybe she was murdered. To Kayla's family, that doesn't make sense. Kayla had just gone on a trip with them and seemed really happy. Her grandparents also say that Kayla gave them no indication that she was upset. She also didn't leave their house crying. With persistence from Kayla's family and the private investigator, it was reopened and reviewed. In 2018, the case should have been reopened, but state agents sadly decided not to, and the case was reclosed. So now Kayla's family are still left without answers or justice. At this point, all they want is for Kayla's death certificate to be changed. They know in their hearts it wasn't suicide. But as we know, once authorities make a final decision, it's almost impossible to change. And I said that with Natasha Boykin's case as well as John Connolly's case. There are loads of these cases where there was virtually no investigation and no support for the families. The biggest frustration is, why would police just take Allan's word and not investigate? He was already arrested the year prior for beating up Kayla. You think that they would do a little more digging. Now, I did do some digging myself, and here is Allan's arrests, because you'll see that he's a shitty person and he has several violations and eviction notices. In 2005, Allan pled guilty for drug paraphernalia. In 2011, he got a ticket for not updating his driver's license. In 2011, he was charged with trespassing and had his license revoked. In 2011, he was charged with driving without a license. In 2017, he was arrested on battery charges against his mother and another person, a female, and also caused $1,000 in damages to the second female's vehicle. In 2008, he got a citation for open container consumption, and that has since gone to collections. In 2018, he was hit with a violation of an injunction for protection against domestic violence and pled no contest. In 2020, he was arrested for trespassing at a Circle K and resisting a police officer. Those fines have gone to collections as well. In 2020, he was arrested for breaking the front window of a Dollar General and stole over $100 worth of cigars, some cigarettes, and lighters. In the records, it said that he was homeless, but single and had 2 dependents. There was a review of competency in that last case to see if he could stand trial for his arrest. In a letter, it stated that he wasn't competent and was put into a treatment facility, but later he was found to be competent after being charged with petty theft and unarmed burglary. Kayla's mother has also posted on Facebook that Allan's mother was messaging her after Kayla's death, which is so tacky, but I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I found Allan's Facebook and there isn't really much on there. His last post was 2018, and when I first discovered it, there was commenters calling him out for the murder of Kayla, but he never replied. However, his mother does, and she defends him. Those comments have since been deleted, and his page is pretty boring right now. If you're from Florida or know Allan Marsh, there is a reward out for new information leading to the arrest or conviction for Kayla Skeen. My thoughts? It seems like Allan's life is catching up to him. He can't stay out of trouble, so it's only a matter of time before he screws up bad enough that he will stay behind bars for a long time. It's really too bad that the state of Florida won't reopen Kayla's death because it all points to Allan. And based on his criminal history, it makes sense to investigate him further. I hope one day that Kayla's family gets justice and he gets locked up because he is a dangerous person. I also couldn't imagine what Kayla's family is going through, losing Kayla in such a horrific way and not getting any real answers. I don't know how they do it. It's very upsetting. That's it for today. If you like this episode, give it a like and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a future episode. See you next week.